The first time Alex saw the building, he thought it looked like something from a movie set. The school stood at the edge of a forgotten road, its windows broken out like missing teeth, its roofline jagged and collapsing. The sign above the entrance was weathered to the point of illegibility. Only a few letters clung to the rusted frame: Springfield High. He hadn't planned on stopping that night. It was late, nearly midnight, and he'd been driving the back roads to clear his head. A fight with his girlfriend, a job slipping through his fingers, the kind of mess that makes you want to wander until your gas tank runs dry. That's when he saw it, the silhouette of the abandoned school looming against the moonlight. Alex pulled over, leaving his car idling at the roadside. Something about the place felt magnetic. He grabbed his phone, the flashlight barely pushing through the dark, and crossed the cracked pavement toward the entrance. The front doors were chained, but one was broken open just enough to squeeze through. The moment he stepped inside, the air shifted. Cold, damp, like stepping into a basement that hadn't seen fresh air in decades. The entryway was a ruin. Lockers leaned open, their doors bent like warped jaws. A trophy case lay shattered, its glass across the floor like scattered ice. The ceiling tiles sagged with mold, one collapsing in a damp plop as Alex's light passed over it. He started recording. Not for TikTok or YouTube, though part of him imagined the views a place like this could pull, but to have proof. Proof that he really saw it. Proof that he wasn't making it all up. Springfield High, he muttered into the phone, his voice bouncing off the walls. Or what's left of it. The school had been abandoned for over 30 years. He remembered hearing something about a fire. Or was it a gas leak? No one seemed to remember exactly. But everyone in town knew the story: people died here. The first accident happened quickly. As Alex turned a corner into the main hallway, his foot slipped on something slick. He caught himself against the wall, his hands smearing against wet moss climbing the plaster. His flashlight beam dropped toward the floor, illuminating a dark puddle. Water, he thought at first. Until he saw the faint shimmer of oil floating across it, rainbow patterns shifting. He nearly laughed. He was lucky he hadn't broken his neck, the floorboards beneath were soft, swollen with rot. That was when the first sound came. A clang, sharp and sudden, from somewhere deeper in the school. Like a locker door slamming shut. Alex froze. His beam shook as he raised it down the hall. Nothing. Just rows of doors, some open, some closed, the darkness inside them heavier than the corridor itself. He pressed on. The gymnasium was the worst so far. The bleachers were collapsed in sections, wood jutting like broken ribs. The basketball hoop dangled from a bent rim, its net long since rotted away. The floor creaked under his weight, warped from water damage, splintering with every step. Something about the space felt crowded. He swept his flashlight over the far wall. Words scrawled in spray paint: "Get out." Original. Or some bored vandal. The sound came again. Not a clang this time, but a thud. Soft, deliberate. Like a footstep. Alex's phone caught it, the microphone distorting slightly. He raised his voice. "Hello?" Silence. The classrooms were worse. Desks overturned, chalkboards cracked, ceilings collapsed into heaps of insulation and plaster dust. In one room, he found a pile of textbooks, their pages fused together into blocks of yellowed paper. Another held a single chair facing the corner, upright while everything else was chaos. He filmed it all, narrating less now, his voice shaking too much. And then he noticed the stairwell. The keep-out tape was brittle and faded, fluttering slightly in the draft. The railing was loose, the steps uneven with holes eaten through. Still, curiosity won. Halfway up, his foot broke through the wood. His shin scraped against the jagged edge, pain flashing white-hot as he barely managed to pull free. Blood soaked through his jeans. "Fuck," he hissed, clutching at the wound. His phone nearly slipped from his hand. Another accident. Natural. Obvious. But it felt staged somehow. As though the building wanted him hurt. At the top, he reached the science wing. The smell hit first, chemical rot, the faint tang of burned plastic and dust. Tables were overturned. Cabinets shattered. Beakers cracked and melted from long ago heat. He swept his light across one of the blackened counters. For a moment, he thought he saw something written there, traced in dust. Words, faint but legible, still here. He blinked. Shine the light again. Gone. Just streaks in the dust. That was when the air shifted again. Colder. He could see his breath puffing faintly. And then he heard it. Children's voices. Not laughing. Not crying. Just murmuring. Low, steady, like the hum of a classroom full of restless students. Alex's skin crawled. He swung the light down the hall, heart pounding. Empty. The murmur rose, filling the space, echoing off the broken walls. He clutched his phone tighter, recording everything. And then, suddenly, silence. The last classroom at the end of the hall had a door nearly off its hinges. He nudged it open with his foot. Inside, the walls were scorched black. The windows were blown outward, glass shards fused into the dirt beyond. Desks were fused into twisted heaps of metal. And in the center of the room, a hole in the floor. Charred, jagged, leading straight down into the basement darkness. Alex felt the breath leave his lungs. His flashlight beam quivered over the hole's edge. And then the phone slipped. It tumbled from his grip, clattering across the floor, skidding dangerously close to the hole. The beam landed crookedly, half illuminating the void. That's when he saw them. Hands. Dozens of them, pale and gray, reaching upward from the hole. Grasping at nothing. Grasping at him. The hands vanished the moment Alex staggered backward. His flashlight trembled across the hole, but there was nothing there now, just shadows, dust swirling upward as if disturbed. His pulse thundered in his ears, and his legs screamed from the gash he'd taken on the stairs. It had to be adrenaline. Blood loss. Shock. But deep down, Alex knew it wasn't just that. He pocketed his phone and tried to steady his breathing. Get out, he told himself. Just get out. But the building didn't let him. The floor gave way beneath his next step. The rotten boards cracked, splintered, and dropped him through the hole before he could react. He fell 8 feet, maybe more, slamming onto concrete so hard the air punched from his lungs. His phone clattered across the basement floor, its flashlight spinning wildly. Darkness pressed in. He lay there for a long moment, fighting to breathe, ribs aching with every shallow inhale. When he finally managed to stand, the beam of his phone revealed the basement around him. Boiler room. Storage. Long corridors of pipes running overhead, dripping rust and water. The air was heavy, metallic, like breathing through wet cloth. Something moved in the corner. Not a figure, not exactly. More like a shadow that wasn't his own, shifting when he stood still. Alex picked up the phone, his hand shaking. He whispered to himself, the way people do when silence is unbearable. Just old pipes. Rats. Nothing else. The silence didn't answer. Instead, something else did. Tap. 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 3 slow knocks against the pipes, echoing through the basement. The smell hit before the sound, burning insulation, sharp and acrid. His light found a breaker box half hanging from the wall, its wires sparking faintly. Each spark lit up the concrete room for a fraction of a second, throwing jagged shadows across the pipes. Alex knew enough to stay away. One step in the wrong direction and he'd be fried. But the path back up was gone. The hole he'd fallen through was out of reach, 10 feet above, and the staircase he'd seen earlier was sealed by collapsed debris. As he searched for another way, his sleeve brushed a dangling wire. A snap of white light seared his vision, his body convulsing as electricity surged through him. He dropped hard to the ground, twitching, his phone tumbling from his grip. He lay there, gasping, waiting for his heart to stop, but it didn't. Just left him dizzy, his muscles twitching uncontrollably. The accident had been real. Tangible. But when he looked toward the breaker box again, he swore he saw a silhouette crouched beside it. Watching. Waiting. He followed the corridor, each step echoing. The air grew colder, damper, until his breath smoked in the beam of his phone. That was when he heard them again. The voices. Children murmuring. Louder now. Distinct. Fire. Can't breathe. Help. The words overlapped, tangled like dozens of kids whispering all at once. Alex froze. He raised the light, but there was only concrete and dripping pipes. Who's there? His voice cracked. The whispers cut off. Then came the sound of coughing. Dozens of throats gasping, hacking, choking. It filled the corridor until Alex couldn't tell if it was real or just inside his head. He staggered forward, clutching his ears. His flashlight beam swung across the walls, and stopped. There, smeared in soot-black streaks, were handprints. Small. Child-sized. Dozens of them, pressed against the concrete like ghosts of kids trying to claw their way out. Alex dropped to his knees. He wanted to leave. He wanted to wake up. But the basement stretched ahead, endless, each corner promising another trap. He found the records room by accident. A heavy steel door hung half open, its lock rusted through. Inside, shelves buckled under the weight of moldy folders and scorched boxes. His light swept across a wall lined with filing cabinets, their labels still faintly visible, attendance. Incident reports. Maintenance logs. He pulled one drawer. It screeched open, spilling a cascade of papers. Most were illegible, waterlogged into pulp. But one envelope caught his eye, sealed in plastic. He tore it open with shaking hands. Inside, a newspaper clipping. Tragedy at Springfield High, gas explosion claims 47. The article described a disaster 31 years earlier. A science lab experiment gone wrong. Gas leaking into the basement. A spark. The explosion tore through the first floor, collapsing stairwells and trapping students inside. Many burned. Others suffocated in the smoke. Parents demanded answers. Investigators found faulty wiring, poor maintenance, a dozen safety violations. But the school board denied responsibility. The building was condemned, then abandoned. Alex's stomach churned as he read. This wasn't just a ghost story. It was real. Kids had died here. Dozens of them. And from the sound of the voices still echoing faintly through the basement, they hadn't left. The ceiling groaned above him. Dust rained down. Alex's flashlight caught a jagged crack splitting across the concrete overhead. He ran. The hallway shook with a deafening roar as a section of ceiling gave way, pipes bursting, water spraying in a torrent. He slipped, crashing into the wall as chunks of concrete slammed into the floor where he'd stood seconds earlier. One shard caught his shoulder, splitting skin to bone. He screamed, blood soaking through his shirt. Another accident. Another coincidence. He staggered to his feet, clutching the wound, when he saw them again. Figures in the spray of water. Shapes of children, silhouettes flickering in and out of view. Some crawled, some limped, some stood perfectly still, their faces blurred by the flashlight's glare. They weren't attacking. They were watching. The basement ended in a furnace room. Massive steel doors hung open, the brick chamber inside blackened and cracked from the explosion decades ago. And there, in the center, Alex saw them clearly for the first time. Students. Burned, broken, twisted forms. Dozens of them, gathered around the furnace like moths to flame. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Their voices rose together, a chorus of whispers. "Stay, with us." Alex staggered backward. "No. No, I'm leaving." The door slammed shut behind him. The floor trembled. A deafening bang shook the furnace as sparks shot upward, flames blooming out of the cracks. Heat filled the chamber, choking and suffocating, the same way it had 30 years before. Alex dropped to the ground, gasping for air. His phone slipped from his grip, still recording as he screamed. The flames roared, the voices rose, and the last thing the camera caught was Alex being dragged, not by hands of smoke this time, but by the collapsing furnace itself, pulling him into its inferno. The phone was found weeks later. Construction crews, clearing debris from the condemned school grounds, unearthed it beneath the rubble. The screen was shattered, the casing melted from heat. But the video file remained intact. It showed everything. The exploration. The accidents. The voices. And finally, the moment Alex was pulled into the fire. Investigators dismissed it as staged. Another urban explorer gone too far. The footage was inconclusive. But those who watched it closely swore they saw more than just fire. They swore they saw faces in the flames. Dozens of them. Still trapped. Still waiting. And one more, newly added among them,